Welcome to A Change of Heart podcast. I'm your host, Angel Walston. And in this space, we navigate life together. We ask the hard questions like, what is the truth you haven't told? But most importantly, we grow together. And sometimes that leads to a change of heart. Hey everyone, welcome back to A Change of Heart podcast. I am your host, Angel. If you are a new listener, hey girl, welcome to the potty. And if you are a returning listener, hey girl, hey, welcome back. Glad to have you all here. Today we are talking about dreams delayed. And before we jump into that, and before we jump into the question of the day, I first have to give a little bit of a disclaimer. I don't know if y'all picking up on it, if y'all care or not, but I just feel like I need to give the disclaimer, especially since this is all audio. There's not video this time. I have not worn my retainer in months, which if you've had braces, you know that's a big no-no. However, I needed to put it back in because teeth be shifting. And I feel like I have a big lisp. So if you're hearing that, that is the reason why. So I just wanted to give that disclaimer because I can hear it. So I'm like, let me just go ahead and say it so y'all not like, what's going on with Angel in her mouth today? All right. So let's go ahead and jump into today's question of the day, which is actually a this or that question. So as we are talking about dreams delayed, I wanted to do a this or that question that is specific to dreams goals. So the question of the day is, if you had to choose between the two, would you rather achieve the dream of your life, like the main goal that you have in mind, but it is a slow, hard, tedious path to get there? Or would you rather stay in a place where you are comfortable and it is an easy path, but you don't ultimately end up doing what you want to do? And I know that can sound like, well, obviously, like I'm going to chase my dreams, I'm going to chase my goals. We're going to get into this whole thing, but just answer the question. What is your honest answer about that? All right, so you can answer this question in the comment section, or you can you can put your answer in my stories, answer it on my stories on Instagram at Angel C. Walston. All right, so today we are talking about dreams delayed. And so obviously with that title, it's referring to having goals, having dreams, having things that you're really believing for, that you've wanted, things that you want to pursue, but for whatever reason that has been delayed. And a lot of times as we experience delay, we view it as denial, and we feel as though because it hasn't happened yet, that it will never happen. And it can put us in a position where we become discouraged, we become frustrated, we become irritated with ourselves. It can put you in a position where you start comparing yourself to other people because you see where other people are by their timeline, and you feel like because you're not in that place by your timeline, then you feel like you have been overlooked or you feel like you're missing out. And it can just put you in a position where you do become very discouraged because you feel like you aren't where you want to be. And in doing that, you also lose sight of how far you've come just because you have not arrived at the destination that you think is ultimately going to be what is fulfilling or what is going to be the thing that really makes you feel like you've quote unquote made it. So with that, I do want to share my personal situation of experience a delayed dream, and also some of the lessons that I learned as I am still processing that delay. So as I mentioned in the trailer for this season, season 3 was pretty much set up for me to launch a mindset coaching business and for me to do like content strategy, like all that stuff. And so let me back up a little bit. So at that time, so that was 2021, I had come up with this exit strategy from my previous job. So it's like, I need to increase my income. I need to put myself in a position where I'm able to like leave this job essentially. And I had came up with this plan for myself that I wanted to do entrepreneurship pretty much part-time. Like I wasn't at a place where I felt comfortable to fully pursue it full-time, knowing like your girl got bills. We've already had that moment where we took a year off from work by faith. That ain't this season. Like for me to do that, I'm gonna be out here broke. And at my big age, unless God says so, we not doing that. So I knew that I needed to have some type of plan set up so that I could position myself to be able to have income coming in. And so I knew that like I was really passionate about that. That was something that I really wanted to do. I really do have a heart and a passion for seeing women pursue the things that God has created them to be, and also what He has like put a burden on them to do. I really love helping women to be able to see that you are capable of doing this, the things that you are allowing yourself to talk yourself out of your goals, your dreams, all of that, that is nothing more than a ploy to keep you from being and doing the things that you're supposed to do that could really impact so many people based off of your obedience. So that truly is a passion of mine. It is still a passion of mine. And so as I was thinking about all of these things, I really felt led to do like mindset coaching and also to help with the mindset blocks, imposter syndrome, doubt, negative self-talk, all of those things. And then also help women to have a strategy for the content pretty much. And so I set season 3 of the podcast up intentionally to launch that at the end of it, and it did not happen. And it didn't happen for a couple of reasons. One being I was in a place where I wasn't in a good place, mental health wise, honestly. And I felt like to start it, I didn't want to start it and press my way through that. Like I wanted to make sure that if I was going to take this on, that I was going to show up as fully as I possibly could and as the best version of myself, especially when accepting money from people, having clients, things like that. I didn't want to put myself in a position where people had, they didn't have the best experience because of those things. And so that was a part of it. Then by time where I was kind of considering it, I just felt like so much time had passed that it was just kind of like, well, and then by that point, it was just kind of like, it was a little bit of a feeling of embarrassment, and it was a feeling of failure. It was a feeling of, I've invested so much money, like the amount of money that I spent on just getting like coaches, different like content things, a website that I never launched, that I never put out, that is still sitting. All of these different things that I had just put so much money in, and how much time I had invested into this dream that never really happened, that never took off. And it wasn't even a thing of it didn't take off. It never happened. And that was a hard thing for me to accept, especially dealing with the mental health aspect of it. It felt like I had failed myself, which that's a hard pill to like digest. And just feeling like I could have done this, but I dropped the ball and now I feel like I've missed the window to do it. And then as time went on, I got busier with things with church and just other things started taking place, that it wasn't even like an option for real for me to be able to do that along with everything else that I was doing. And I would be lying if I said that I wasn't disappointed about that, because it was something that, although I had not launched it in the sense of making it something that was like available to the public per se, I had worked with maybe like 5 or 6 people privately to prepare and make sure like, okay, what I'm doing, this makes sense. I can actually like do what I have like this vision for, this thing that I have a dream for. And I really enjoyed that. Like I really loved doing that, and being in that space just like reaffirmed like I can do this. Like this is something that like I have a heart for, that I'm passionate about, and I really do think that I can do this and see it through. And just being able to have the opportunity to like work with those people on a free scale, it really did help me to realize like, okay, yes, this is like a vision that I have, this is a dream that I have, but it's like we could actually do this one day. And so to be on the other side of it now, where it's like this dream that is just sitting, this dream that's kind of like, are we going to pick it back up? I don't know. If we do pick it back up, like, what is that going to look like? While also dealing with all of just like the emotions of feeling like a failure and feeling like you didn't follow through with something, feeling like you didn't do what you set out to do, and something that you said you were going to do in such a public way. Like, and I should say in such a public way, because I don't want to downplay my little podcast, okay? I love y'all. I appreciate y'all for real. My podcast ain't like out there like that. So it's not like a ton of people are listening to it, but still for me to share on my podcast, to share on my YouTube channel that I am starting this business, I'm doing this thing, to change all the branding, to do all those things. It's just kind of like, it's just that feeling of like, dang, to feel like I set it up to be like this huge something, and that we are pursuing our goals. We're going after this. I set it up to be this big thing only for it to end up being nothing. And even in the times where I've like considered starting it back, y'all, my relationship with social media right now is just so non-existent. Like even right now, posting the podcast, the question of the day is really the only thing that's keeping me on Instagram for real, because otherwise I don't be on there. And I'm really not feeling social media right now. That's neither here nor there. But my point of sharing all of this is because I know that there are other people, specifically other women who are in a position or who have been in a position where they feel like they were pursuing a goal. There was a dream that they had, something that they were going after. And for whatever reason, as life happened, things came up, situations changed, finances changed, whatever it might be, you didn't pursue it. And I know how disappointing that can be. And I know that it can be, it can just feel like you failed. And it can be really hard to separate failing with feeling like you are a failure, especially when it's something that you feel like you are the cause as to why it didn't happen or why it didn't go in the way that you thought it would. But with that, there have also been lessons that have been learned in the delay. And I think that's important to talk about, because a lot of times when we are looking at something as a delay, we focus so much on what didn't happen that we miss what did happen. Because there were some lessons that were within the delay. There was purpose still within the delay. And I don't want us to miss the things that we should have taken away from us while we were in a place of waiting, or while we had to be content in a season of something that was delayed, because there's purpose in everything. And so as I was thinking about what has this last year and a half now taught me about this delayed dream, the first thing that came to mind is that delay can also be a part of the assignment. Let me repeat that one more time for you. Delay can also be a part of the assignment. What do I mean by this? So a lot of times when we experience a delay, we just get focused on the fact that what we wanted to happen didn't happen. And so we feel like we're now off course. We feel like we now have to take a detour. We have to figure this out. We got to figure that out. But as I said earlier, there's purpose in everything. So even in the midst of a delay, that can still be a part of the assignment. A lot of times when we are visionaries, when we are creatives, in life in general, when we have a goal in mind, we are usually thinking about the end result. We're thinking about what's going to happen once we arrive, right? We typically don't figure out the middle until we're going through the process of it. And so a lot of times we think the end result, because we have this vision for it, because God spoke it, because this is a promise, whatever it might be, we feel like it's supposed to be easy to get there, or we think the path that we take to get there, it's not going to be that complicated. But the reality is sometimes a part of the assignment, a part of the process to get you to your end result requires the delay, because there's some things that you need to learn. There's some things that you need to take with you to get to the end result. There's some people who you need to connect with maybe. There's different things, different elements that need to be a part of this journey for the assignment to actually be fulfilled. And a lot of times when we look at delay, we then try to force it. And have you ever tried to force something that won't try to go? Whether it's a ponytail, whether it's a relationship, whether it's an assignment, you put in more work and effort trying to force something that is not working or is not the time for it to work than if it were just something that was going to come together seamlessly or smoothly. And we can put ourselves in a position where we get so focused on trying to force it. We're trying to make it happen. We're trying to move it. And it seems like we're exhausting all of our energy trying to make something happen that's not supposed to be happening right now. And for some of you, you don't even realize that the role that delay plays in your assignment is to give you rest. For some of you, the reason why there has been a delay because you've been running, you have been doing, you've been moving, you've been hustling, you've been grinding, and ain't nobody tell you to do that. Sometimes we put ourselves in a position where God is truly trying to provide us with resources. He's trying to provide us with provision through Him, not our own strength. He's trying to show us that we can utilize other people to help us to achieve the vision, the goal, the dream. And we can put ourselves in a position where we want to do everything ourselves. Can we talk about that? Because for some of you, you're in a position where you experience a delayed dream because it's not just for you to fulfill by yourself. And there are people who can help you with this assignment. There are people who are truly necessary to get you to the end game, but you're trying to do everything by yourself because you don't like people. You introverted. I'm introverted, so I understand. But for some of you, you're in a season where it's like you seem like it's paused, it's stalled. You can't get past go. And it's not because the dream is counted out. It's not because you're not supposed to do it, but the delay that is a part of your assignment is a result of you needing other people to help you to get to the other side of this stalled point. Delay can also be a part of the assignment. Don't get so focused on what didn't happen that you miss what is happening in the midst of the process to get to the dream, to get to the end goal. Because when you put so much focus on this hasn't happened yet, it's not going the way that I thought it would, all of these different things, it leaves you closed to the possibilities for other ways to get there except for the one that you created. Which brings me to my second lesson. Sometimes the reason why you are experiencing a delay is because you're dreaming too small and you're playing it too safe. Something that I have had a bad habit of doing is downplaying what I really want and making it on a smaller scale that feels attainable, because to acknowledge or say something on a scale that feels like it's unattainable, it feels like, well, what am I gonna do that for? Like, why am I gonna set myself up for failure if this feels unattainable? But a lot of times as we are creating these dreams, these goals for ourselves, we have this vision that typically is very small in comparison to what we can actually be, what we can actually do, the impact that we can actually have. And it can put us in a position where we feel as though I can do this because this is easy. And not as much that it's easy, but it's like, I know how to do this. But the thing is, sometimes the path that you need to take in order for you to learn some things, in order for you to connect, as I was saying earlier, with the right people, in order for you to be able to do what it is that you were actually created to do, sometimes you have to take the path that is least followed. Sometimes you have to step outside of yourself and try something that you've never done before. And sometimes you have to allow yourself to be open to ideas and options that aren't just what you initially had in mind for the vision at hand. So often we put ourselves in a box along with putting God within a box because we feel as though 1 + 1 = 2. So that's what we're going to stay at. We only trying to do basic addition over here. Don't bring geometry up in here. Don't bring statistics up in here. Like, don't try and like put too much in here, because then I got to figure this out. I got to figure that out. And you start talking yourself out of things. But when you really just start to allow yourself to be open to the fact that I wanted it to look this way, but even if it doesn't, I can still pursue the dream. I can still follow through with it. I can still get to the place that I want to be. And it could potentially even be bigger than what I ever expected for it to be. I am trying to live in a season of having greater expectation, because I don't want to allow my limited expectation or my limited beliefs to allow me to stay in a place that is small, or that will allow me to stay in a place that is comfortable when I have been called out of comfortability. And I want to challenge you with that as well, because for some of you, you feel like you're delayed when in reality, you've just shut yourself off to the other possibilities to achieve the goal or to achieve the dream, or because it doesn't look the way that you want it to, you feel like you've missed it and you feel like you have failed when there's still opportunity there. There's still room for you to be able to achieve it. There's still the opportunity for you to be able to go and to do and to be everything that you had in mind, but you're limiting yourself because you feel like, well, it had to look this way. And because it doesn't look this way, then I've missed it. Maybe you haven't missed the mark. Maybe you're right on the mark that you're supposed to be at for God to create the dream that you were originally destined for. We can lose that and lose sight of that because we're so focused on what we want it to look like, what we feel like it should look like, and how we feel like it's supposed to come together. Even if you don't get to the end game or the end goal in the way that you had in mind, but you still get there, has the goal still not been succeeded? Because you got there. Don't get lost in the journey. Don't get lost in the midst of it. And let me also say this. I say don't get lost in the journey, but even if you feel like you are lost, know that that's also a good place to start over. And that's a good place to be open to figure out, okay, where do I need to go from here? The dream may be delayed, but that doesn't mean that I have to give up on it. It doesn't mean that I just need to quit on it. It doesn't mean that I need to throw in the towel. I just need to pivot. I just need to try something new. I need to be open to something new. I can say for me, although I have not been able to work with women in the capacity that I intentionally had planned for, what I intended to do for the most part, as far as like mindset coaching, I still get that fulfillment in things that I'm doing as far as like my young adult life group and being able to like have conversations on one-on-ones with those women. That has been very fulfilling for me. And I realized in hindsight, if I was doing my mindset coaching business and all this other stuff, I would not have had the time to do that, to be honest. I probably would not have done my life group because I would have had too much occupying my time. And so, although it doesn't look the way that I had hoped for or that I had planned for, what I'm doing now is very much so still fulfilling something that I wanted to do because I'm still able to speak to women in a way that helps them to be reminded of who God has created them to be, to remind them that they can be, do anything that God has created them to be, and to actually fulfill those things. And so I'm able to have that in person as well versus having to just solely do it virtually. And that is something that's very fulfilling for me, but I could have missed that if I was trying to force this path over here to make something happen that, not saying that it's never going to happen, but it just was not the timing for it, especially based off of how things have played out over the last year. Last thing I want to talk about is to just consider how delays make room for the things and the people who are necessary for right now. And what I mean by that is sometimes it requires us to slow down. Sometimes it requires us to step away from the busyness. And sometimes it requires us to be in a position to sit with ourselves, to deal with some things, to heal from some things, in order for us to position ourselves for what is the right now. A lot of times when we are focusing on something that is to come, we can spend so much time preparing for what is to come that we miss what is right now and we miss what is here in the present. And sometimes we don't realize that there are things that didn't need to happen right now so that what's happening right now can happen. And I can understand how that can be hard to accept when whatever you may be experiencing right now is difficult or challenging or not the best timing for it. But I truly do believe that things happen in the way that they're supposed to, in the timing that they're supposed to. And there's a quote that I got from, I don't know who the actual quote is. I saw it, a guy on the Baldwin Hills show on BT a long, long time ago. One of the quotes that he said, which is one of my favorite quotes, is today happened the way that it did so that tomorrow can happen the way that it should. And I truly believe that. I believe that there are things that have to happen in order for the things that we need right now for us to be in position to receive that. And sometimes we are fighting and frustrated and angry and upset and disappointed in what was delayed because we were really hopeful. We really wanted that thing. It was supposed to happen. We see it happening for everybody else. When is it going to be my turn? I want it now. I don't want to have to wait. All of these different things. But you don't realize how, because this is delayed, it's setting you up for something that is a right now situation. We can get so focused on the delay that we miss what is happening right now. There are some things that you were believing for years and years ago. There are things that you prayed about years and years ago. There were things that you didn't even know that you needed that are happening right now that you are missing because you are focused on what is delayed. And a lot of times when we spend more time focusing on what is delayed, we miss what is right before us. And I'm realizing even now that I was, I won't say grieving because that is a strong word, but I was disappointed in myself for this thing not taking off, not going the way that I wanted it to. And I'm realizing more and more every day that over this last year, I am literally walking in so many answered prayers. And I don't want to take advantage of that because of what didn't happen. I don't want to miss what is happening right now because I'm so focused on what didn't happen in 2021. I know it can be hard to release and let go of something that you really wanted. And I said earlier that grieved is a strong word, but for some of you, you need to grieve what didn't happen. You need to lay that down. And I'm not necessarily saying let it go because what didn't happen doesn't mean that it won't ever happen. But you need to grieve that moment of this didn't happen. I was believing for it. I was hoping for it. I really wanted that thing and it didn't happen. Being okay to grieve that and even still maybe hold it to your heart in ways to still hold on to that dream of what's to come. But don't allow what didn't happen to lead you to miss what is currently happening in the present. Because the delay, that can be something that is addressed later. But I can guarantee you that even as you may be dealing with a delay right now, there are things that you wanted months ago, years ago, weeks ago, whatever ago, that is happening right now. And I really want to challenge you to take a moment today to think about what are things that I'm experiencing right now that I felt like was a delay a year ago? What are things that I am seeing the fruit of today, right now, that I have seen in 2023 that in 2020 I had completely given up hope on? I didn't think it would ever happen for me. I didn't think that I would be on the other side of it. I didn't think that I would be able to experience life in this way. I didn't think that I would experience the goodness of it in this way. Think about that, because the delay of one thing, whoo, the delay of one thing can make you feel like the 10 things that aren't delayed that are here right now, it can make you feel like they're non-existent or they're irrelevant or they don't matter. When the truth of the matter is, this time, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years ago, you were really wanting the things that exist right now. Don't allow the delay to get you to a place, not that you lack gratitude, but that you lack awareness of what is currently happening, what is currently taking place that is good, that is fruitful, that is something that is fulfilling to you as well. Because even as you may be believing for something that hasn't happened yet, they're still good in today. They're still good in today. They're still good in the right now. There's still things in the right now. And listen, I'm a big firm believer about this. Two things can exist. You can grieve what hasn't happened and also be present and grateful for what has happened. Those two things can both be true. Those two things can exist. I'm not trying to negate that. But I just don't want us to be in a position where we get so caught up in, I want this, I was believing for this, it didn't happen, I failed, whatever it might be, that you don't realize that there are things that are right now, that the delay, you are allowing your thought process in the midst of a delay to rob you of what you are experiencing right now. Okay. All right, y'all. So that's everything that I have for this episode. I hope that this was helpful. Please make sure that you take some time to share it with a friend. And until next time, don't forget, be whole, be healed, and be authentic. Have an amazing week. Thank you so much for tuning into A Change of Heart podcast. I hope you were encouraged, and please take a moment to share with a girlfriend, and don't forget to download the episode. Lastly, I would love to connect with you. You can follow me on Instagram at Angel C. Walston and at A Change of Heart podcast. Have an amazing week, and don't forget, be whole, be healed, and be authentic.